Picture this. You're at a Passover Seder, and you've just gotten to the moment in the story in which the Israelites are finally leaving Egypt. The Seder leader asks everyone to stand. You get up from your seat and begin to march around the table, around and around, all while singing. March out of Egypt, 1, 2, 3. March out of Egypt, follow me. March out of Egypt, down to the sea. March out of Egypt, we are free. As you journey around the table with family or with friends, you are invited to take part in acting out the Exodus. This song is a part of my family's Passover tradition, so I've been doing this for years. But this year, I wonder, what does it mean for some congregations, for my family, and perhaps yours too, to get up and march and put ourselves into the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim, the Exodus from Egypt? During the Seder, we proclaim this line, Bechol dor vador, in each and every generation, Chayav Adam, each person is obligated, lirot et atzmo, to see themselves, Ke'ilu hu yatsa mi Mitzrayim, as if they went out of Egypt. The Haggadah tells us it is our obligation to see ourselves as if we came out of Egypt, not just to engage in the routine of the Seder and to retell the story, but also to see ourselves as though we took part in the Exodus, as if we personally went out of Egypt. If we grew up in Westchester or Chicago or San Diego in the 60s, 70s, or 2010s, it might be hard to imagine ourselves in Egypt, across the world, thousands of years ago, and without our freedom. It might be hard to see ourselves as if we went out of Egypt, as if we were ever in Egypt. Might we identify with the second child in the Haggadah, the one who is called the wicked child, the Rasha? The wicked child is said to have asked, "What is this service to you?" The rabbis tell us that he asked, "What is this to you?" and not to us, thereby distancing himself from the Jewish people and excluding himself from the collective narrative. Because the child does not see himself as part of the people in the remembrance of this story, he is deemed wicked. But is this question really wicked? For some of us, this story feels far away from our lives. The child distances himself from the collective memory because he says, "This isn't my experience of being Jewish." Perhaps then, is he asking the right question? Maybe he wonders if he has earned the right to claim he marched out of Egypt. I haven't suffered, he might think. Why would God perform a miracle for me? The child may wonder, can I claim this as part of my identity if it isn't part of my lived experience? None of us personally came out of enslavement in Egypt in the time of Moses. Of course, this didn't happen in our lifetimes, and we know it's more about fostering a sense that this is part of our history and story as a Jewish people than believing that we were literally there. But what about for those of us who do see ourselves in this story? When asked about what it felt like to come out of Egypt, some of us may be able to point to a time in our lives when that was real for us. Surviving a life-threatening illness, coming out as gay or transgender, leaving an abusive relationship, surviving the death of a family member. Some of us have parents who survived the Holocaust, and much more, including the other collective traumas we've experienced as a Jewish and human family. Even if it may not literally be an exodus from slavery in Egypt to the desert, we may be able to point to an experience we've had and say, that was my Egypt. The Rasha, the so-called wicked child, is not the only one who struggles with our commandment to see ourselves as though we came out of Egypt. Perhaps Maimonides in the 12th century did as well. He added one letter to the verb, which changes the entire meaning of the verse. He tells us not to lirot, to see ourselves as if we came out of Egypt, but leheraot, to show ourselves as if we came out of Egypt. This change of one letter transforms the message. Whether we see ourselves in the story or not, we must act as though we came out of Egypt. What does this mean, to act as though we came out of Egypt? Perhaps acting as though we came out of Egypt is not only about how we see ourselves, but about how we see others. To say, I too came out of Egypt, doesn't always have to mean I am you, but can mean I see you, to all those who are experiencing their own Egypt. To belong to a tradition which has the story at its core means we strive towards empathy and justice and fight back against all forms of oppression, and we recognize the modern Egypts around us and in our own lives. But we also have another obligation as a part of this mitzvah as well, to ask ourselves how we fit in the story. We must explore and be curious. It's our job to engage with this story year after year and consider how we connect to it and how it should inform our lives. For those of us who have a clear sense of our version of Yetziat Mitzrayim, of leaving Egypt and finding freedom, we consider, what do we do with this connection? How does it inform our relationship with our ancestors, with other Jews, and with others who are in personal or communal versions of Mitzrayim? And how should it inform our actions? For those of us who feel the connection is uncertain or difficult to feel, we can inquire about why it's hard. What about our experience makes us feel distant from Yetziat Mitzrayim, the Exodus? And if we don't see ourselves as coming out of Egypt, in what way does having the story as a part of our inherited tradition still inform our identity and our actions? For all of us, if we can approach this year's Seder with thoughtfulness about where we fit into the story, listen to the questions of the Rasha with care and openness, and look at the observance of Passover with more curiosity, Dayenu. Shabbat Shalom.